Hello, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the peace and conflict section of the themes for paper 2. And today we're going to look at reasons for going to war and see if you can make any sense of it and see if I can help you with understanding those reasons and how we could tackle the questions that may come up in that section. You may have already started your 12-mark question about, I think I worded it like this, greed or wanting a better life is not a good reason for going to war. And you could argue that both ways, of course, because you could say, well, wanting a better life for my citizens, let's say I was the president or the prime minister of a country, and I went to war with a neighboring country in order to expand our borders or to obtain new resources, water, or whatever it may be. Wanting a better life for my citizens is not always a bad thing. You could argue that going to war and embracing another country and including them in your borders, assimilating them into your culture and so on, may be a reason. And some people have gone to war for those very reasons. On the other hand, you could argue that greed and just wanting a better life is never a good reason for going to war because of all the destruction that will be caused, for the innocent life that will be lost, for the infrastructure that will be destroyed, and all those kinds of reasons. So if you want to tackle that 12-mark question or discuss it among yourselves, before you continue with this video, then pause the video now. So let me share my screen with you, and we will start having a look at reasons for going to war. Okay. Right, so let's have a look at some notes. The section is 6.3, of course, and there are the three main reasons that people go to war: greed, self-defense, retaliation. Very obvious, not something that you could argue about. Those are very easy things. You could have thought of those yourselves, I'm sure. Greed, expanding on it, wanting more land, regaining land lost in a previous war, wanting more resources, water, natural resources, all of those points that you can see on the screen there. The fact that powerful countries tend to get more powerful and weaker countries get weaker, that would be a consequence of greed. What does the Bible say? Well, the Christian Bible says the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Note that it says the love of money, not money, is the root of all evil. I often hear people saying money is the root of all evil. No, it's the love of money, it's obsession with money that is the root of all evil, because it leads to all kinds of terrible things. I just want more, more, more. And so I'm prepared to do all kinds of, I'm prepared to kill. I'm prepared to steal in order to have more money. So it's the love of money. Remember to include that in the verse. Self-defense, very often regarded as quite acceptable for countries to go to war to defend themselves, or for even individuals to use violence to defend themselves. Even in a court of law, if you can prove that you were defending yourself from an aggressor and there was no alternative and you used violence, it would be justifiable. in this case, we're talking about war, and very often it is regarded as justifiable if you go to war to defend yourself against an aggression by another country or another force. Some people even say it's a right, it's one of the rights that you have to defend yourself. And you can think of World War II, where the UK fought to defend its values and its way of life from Nazi Germany wanting to invade Britain. Not much in the teaching of Jesus about fighting in self-defense. I'm not sure what he would have said. Would he have said it is justifiable? And by the way, remember, if something is justifiable, it doesn't mean it's right. It's that there's a difference between something being right and something being justifiable. If I attack someone to defend my family and perhaps knock someone to the ground, hurt them in some way because they were threatening to attack my family, that might be justifiable, but it's not right. So I've done something that is wrong. I've hurt another human being, but I've done it for an acceptable reason, for a justifiable reason. Always remember there's a difference. Right, then retaliation is a third reason for going to war. Somebody does something terrible towards your country. You and your government say, we must retaliate in order to make it clear that we will not allow this to go unanswered or unpunished. And I think of well, in the textbook, we've got the 2001 attacks on the Twin Towers in New York as an example of that, where the US, under President George Bush, decided they must retaliate against Al-Qaeda, who they believed were responsible. I remember that date because it's the date my family and I came out to the UK on that exact day, the 11th of September, to live here as a family. Now, the Christian Bible says, do not repay evil for evil. So retaliation is controversial for religious people, especially for Christians. Do not repay evil for evil. And Jesus says, I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on your right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. Which is your right cheek? Well, this is my right cheek. And if somebody slaps me on the right cheek, what does that mean? So somebody's facing me. Most people are right-handed. Some of you may be left-handed, but most of you will be right-handed. If you have to slap me on the right cheek and you're right-handed, you might want to do a demonstration in the classroom, pausing my video, but you will notice that you can't do it unless you use a backhand. So what Jesus seems to be saying is if somebody treats you like scum, gives you a backhand, walks past you and just does that to you, saying you're nothing, you're useless, I have no respect for you. Jesus says, don't let them do it. Turn the other cheek. Turn your left cheek to them, or go back to them and say, point to your cheek and say, I dare you to make me your equal. Now the bully either has to take up the challenge, in which case you and I equals, or the bully walks away embarrassed and everybody laughs. So I think that could be what Jesus means by that, but you could have a discussion among yourselves. Right, so that's the section on reasons for war. What kind of questions might you get in an exam for this section? Well, you could get a 2-marker which simply asks you to give 2 reasons for war, in which case you only need to put down 2 words: retaliation and self-defense, or whichever 2 you choose. If it's a 4 marker, you will obviously need to say a bit more. So mention the reason and then expand on it, and mention another reason and expand on it. If it's a 5 marker, you all know how to do 5 markers by now. Just like a 4 marker, reason, expand, reason, expand on it, and then make sure you include a scripture verse, like the ones that I've just mentioned to you. Okay, so let's look at the next little section, which is about nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction. You must know these types of weapons. I'll show you here in the textbook. Here they are. Make it a bit bigger. So these 4 types of weapons of mass destruction, actually: nuclear, chemical, biological. Go through them here. Make sure you are familiar with the differences and perhaps some examples. You can refer to the terrible events at the end of the Second World War, which brought the war to a final end, where Japan was the victim of nuclear weapons. You might even want to have a discussion in the class about whether that was justifiable. Remember, sometimes things are still wrong, but they can be justifiable. But you may say, no, it's not justifiable. So have a look at these 4 types of weapons of mass destruction. Here are the notes on them that I've got for you, which is really a summary of what the textbook says. Have a look at those notes. There they are. And I'm contrasting these weapons of mass destruction with the beliefs in Hinduism about using weapons. Now, this is very interesting. Hindus have a thing called the laws of Manu. Laws of Manu. And they state specifically, as it says there, that women, children, the elderly, people who are sleeping, or those who've turned their back on you or dropped their weapons, should not be attacked. That is a specific command or expectation of Hindus who are soldiers. Remember, Hindus are pacifists on the whole, but there are times when they are allowed to go to war, where it is justifiable for them to go to war. So that's the laws of Manu. Then in the Vedas, there is also a reference which you might find easy to remember for an exam answer. And remember, if you are studying a different religion, a different second religion, like Islam or Judaism or whatever, you would still use Hinduism as your other religion, because one of the questions may be worded, refer to the main religion of the UK or Britain, Christianity, and one other religion. So the Vedas say that a warrior should never poison the tip of his arrow. We don't use arrows much anymore, I think, in wars, but the point is, don't make the effect of your weapon any worse than it needs to be. And they should neither should they attack sick people or elderly people, children, women, or attack people from behind. Okay, so, and then here is a verse from the Old Testament, which of course applies to Christians and Jews, but also to some extent to Muslims. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Now remember, that doesn't just mean you're allowed to respond, you're allowed to attack someone who's attacked you. It's specific to how you respond. One eye for one eye. You don't poke two eyes out if you've lost one of your eyes. That is more of a response than is required. Somebody punches your tooth out, you're allowed to punch one of their teeth out. It's that kind of thing. It's not specifically about eyes and teeth, of course. It's just about proportional response. You must respond in proportion to the way that you have been attacked. And we'll come to that in the next section on the just war, which is perhaps the most important section of this chapter. Right, so that's about all I think I want to say to you about these two sections. By all means, look at the exam board's website, find out some of the possible questions that may be asked on this section, and about these issues of reasons for going to war. And you'll find there are lots of different permutations of questions that may apply. Thanks for listening.